Hi, everybody. My name's Pam Morgan, and I teach at the University of New England, and I'm also a volunteer at the Conservation Trust. And so today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about something that you might enjoy doing in the next few weeks out in the woods near your home or off one of the trails at the Conservation Trust. So this is one of the best times of the year to be out in the woods because of two reasons. First of all, there's very few bugs yet, right? The ticks are out a little bit, but really there's no mosquitoes, there's no black flies, and so it's really fun to walk in the woods. Secondly, I think the other reason why this is a great time to be in the woods is that you can easily find these small little spring wildflowers that are starting to come up. There's usually a lot more greenery in the woods. As soon as all the plants start leafing out and a bunch of plants start growing up from the forest floor, all the little tiny spring wildflowers really get covered over and it's hard to find them. But at this time of the year, they're coming up, they're popping up. They're some of the very first things to bloom. And so it's really fun to go out in the woods and to look for them, seeing if you can find them, and then maybe even trying to figure out the names for some of these spring wildflowers. So what I'm going to do today is just talk a little bit about some spring wildflowers that you might look for in your area, what you might do once you find those spring wildflowers. And then if you're interested, I have a second little video clip that talks about how you can get on the internet and try to figure out the names of the flowers that you've been able to find in your area. So I'm going to show you a couple of slides here that will help me to show you some of the spring wildflowers that I've actually found in my backyard. This first one I just took a picture of maybe last week because I noticed that, as you can see on the picture, the flowers are just getting started. This is a little teeny plant, really low to the ground. Flowers are just getting started. So a little bit hard to figure out what it is yet because the flowers aren't open. Usually you have to wait until the flowers are open to try to figure out what the plant is. But I could certainly take my nature journal and I could sketch this. And then I could visit it again in another week or two, or maybe just a few days. This one looks very close, and see if the flowers have opened. And then I could do another sketch showing what that might look like. And so this be a fun project. This picture is the same plant, and I took this last year, and you can see this plant does open up to have these beautiful white flowers with 5 petals. Now, one thing you're going to want to do when you're out in the woods is pay careful attention to what these look like. They're small, and you really have to look closely in order to really see them. Here's another one of my favorites. This is actually called trout lily, and I just took this picture the other day. The leaves are up now. I've been looking for them the last few weeks, but they've just poked through the leaf litter, and they're called trout lily. I don't know if you can guess why, but if any of you are fishermen, if you look at the leaf, it looks a little bit like trout skin. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I found a picture of a trout, and I thought I'd share it with you so you can look at that and see that patchy kind of mottled look. Maybe that looks a bit like the trout lily. And then in a couple of weeks, we'll see all of these trout lilies, which are growing all around here. This is a very common early wildflower in the woods and even in the fields. This I took in the field near my house. They'll start blooming, and then you'll see the lilies. And you can see how pretty that yellow flower is, that if you were able to get out there and take a picture of it or to try and draw it, that would be, I think, a great idea. Here's another one that you can keep your eyes open for. This one is a woodland wildflower. And so, as I mentioned, I think what you can do is you can get out in the woods and bring your nature journal. I know that many of you have created a nature journal with Bailey's help. And if you have one, take it out with you when you're looking for the spring wildflowers. And like this person did, do your best at drawing what you're looking at. Now, not everybody's a great artist. So you may not be able to draw quite as well as this person did. I know I certainly couldn't. However, notice that they also took a lot of notes. So that's something you can do when you're out there. If you can't quite represent what you're looking at by drawing it, just write a little note, and that will help you to remember what it looked like just from reading the notes that you wrote. And if you don't have a journal, of course, you can always bring some plain paper and just a book to lean on, like this person did, and do a little nature journal just on a single sheet of paper. I think this is really lovely that this person created. So again, when you're looking at the spring wildflowers, of course, it's fun just to tromp through the woods and see what you can find. But if you are going to draw them, here's a couple of hints. So if you decide you want to try to identify them, figure out what they are, then you're going to need to make note of a couple of things. One thing you're going to need to note, of course, is the petals. And I know most of you have learned about the parts of the flower in class before. So I know my kids did at Consolidated School. I think it was first or second grade when they learned about the parts of the flower. So you're going to take a careful look if your flowers are out, what color are the petals, and then you should count them. So how many are there and what color are they? And if you can draw that, great, or make a note. Another thing you could take a close look at is if the flower is open, look inside and see if you can see the stamen. The stamen is the part of the flower that at the top of the stamen in the anther, that's where the pollen is produced. So in a little bit then, those anthers will open up and all the pollen grains will come out. So that's another thing that you could take a careful look and make a note of in your nature journal. The other thing you're going to want to keep an eye out for, because this will help you to identify your flower, is make a note or draw how are the leaves arranged. There are a couple of common ways that the leaves are arranged, and they actually have names. So this is the opposite arrangement, which makes sense because if you look at the leaves in all of these pictures here, they are coming off the stem opposite of each other, sort of 2 by 2 by 2. So that is one type of leaf arrangement. And in this next picture, you can see there's the opposite arrangement again in the center. But the most common arrangement that we have is on the left, the alternate leaf arrangement. And in the alternate arrangement, leaves come off the stem on either side, first on the left, then on the right, then on the left, then on the right, not directly across from each other. So that's called alternate arrangement. And then sometimes leaves will actually come off in a third way called whorled. And that's where the leaves come off the stem all around in a circle and they attach to the stem at the same point. So alternate, opposite, or whorled. If you can't remember the names, just go ahead and draw the picture the best you can, but just make sure that you make a note of that in your notebook. So here we are back again with the first picture that I showed you. Now on the left-hand side, as I said, the buds were out, but the flowers weren't open just yet. I might be able to figure out what plant that was if I didn't have the flowers, but once the flowers open up, it's actually not that hard to figure out what the plants are. So if you're interested in that, then tune back in and you can take a look at my next video where I will show you where you can go on the website to figure out what the flowers are that you've been able to discover.